welcome back to a brand new video of the Target Individual Program, Target Individual Experience. Um, Good to be back. Okay. Uh, since I have not been over at Pam spending the night, I decided to refocus my attention into doing more videos. Okay. And so it's something that they don't like, but you know, hey, when they target me over there, you know, hey, it's one or the other. Okay. So either both also. But, just getting my mind back into doing these videos and continue to exposing them on a level in which they don't like to be exposed, right? When you expose the lies, the deception that they've told us, you know, the crimes against TIs, the illegal microchipping, and the method, tactics, and practices that they do in order to silence us as TIs from coming forward and speaking about what it is that they are doing and what they have done. Okay. So I, for one, like I said, tired of being uh, harassed daily, right? Being hit with directed energy weapons, the illegal access of my mind, my emotions, my thoughts, the hijacking of my consciousness, okay, to move my motor activities, right? So I talked about lately how, you know, when they targeted me heavily and I started to record the videos because they want me to stop recording, I wouldn't, like I reach for glass and just knock it over. Okay. And it isn't like I accidentally hit it. My hands literally, I had no control and it just knocked the glass over. Or if I have something in my hand, it would just fly out of my hand. It would literally throw stuff out of my hand. All right. So again, I'm just really, really tired, and I'm going to continue doing this. And the more they attack me, the more videos I'm going to do. All right. I actually use their attacks on me as motivation to, um, you know, expose what it is that's being done. All right. So let's talk about this. Recently, I came across this YouTube channel. Okay. Let me. This is Tamara Hill. She's a therapist. And she was talking about gang stalking and mobbing. Now, I have to tell you, in the past, I did speak to one therapist who acknowledged gang stalking and community harassment, psychological harassment. Okay, I couldn't use her as my therapist because she would not accept my insurance. Okay, I would have had to pay, and she was very, even though she did do the sliding scale, still couldn't afford it. Okay, but I was pretty shocked, and she don't just only talk about gang stalking and mobbing, but other issues, particularly if you are being gang stalked and mobbed within your family, within society. There's a host of topics that she delves into to help you and I as TIs, as well as anybody else that may have um, you know toxic people around them, to help them navigate through these individuals and to deal with certain things in your life that may be psychologically affecting you negatively, so you can have more positive way of thinking, having more positive emotions, and more positive thought patterns. All right. So I just wanted to give her recognition and to say thank you for acknowledging what we as TIs have been talking about for decades, and it is good to see, you know, someone in her field acknowledge, you know, what is going on. And so I thank her for that. So I just wanted to give her that shout out, and also to ask you fellow TIs to go to her channel, subscribe. She has a uh, she has videos on there that are very important and will help you. Okay. So what I have decided to do for the next couple videos is to, as I said, the next couple videos, there used the car honking. See, I'm back. I'm back to my sound effects. Okay, I'm back to my sound effects. Okay, and oh, there goes the knock. Let's see. You know, it's been a while since I've actually uh, there you go. Okay, and then followed by the knock. Okay, so yeah. So I've decided for the next couple of videos, I am going to um, do like a book reading. Not all of the book, but just a few chapters of a book that's is relevant to what um, we as TIs go through. And I will also do some reading of chapters in books that has to deal with the origin of religion. 'Cause I think we as TIs need to understand the mindset of the indoctrinated perps or sheeps who target us on a day-to-day basis is because of their belief system, because of their religious belief system, and those within the religious organizations, maybe member of the police department, government agencies, that, you know, when you have fanatics in position of power, particularly religious fanatics, you know, you need to understand the truth about their religion, and also where these types of mentality come from, the hypocrisy, the contradictions in what they say to what they actually uh, to what they say they believe to what they actually do. Okay, so we're going to uh, do. I'm going to do some of these videos, and we're going to dive into these things. All right. Okay. So we're going to do some reading. This is a book written in 1997 by Dr. Nick Begich and Dr. Ginny Mannon. And I think we all know who Dr. Nick Begich is. Okay, he's one of the first person that I came across online doing research. He has a website called Earth Pulse, I think. I'm not sure if it's .com, .net, or .org. I have no idea at this point. But you know, one of the things that I heard a lot of TIs were talking about in our talk show was this book called Angels Don't Play This Harp, right? And again, I don't want to read, I'm not going to read the entire book, just a few chapters. Um, and again, I'm going to use the Copyright Disclaimer uh, Act of 1976, right? Allowance for fair use for purpose such as criticism, commenting, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Okay? So this is teaching, and we're doing research. Okay, because again, even though I talk about the American diplomats, we all know got hit with that what they call sonic weapon. It's really uh, um, microwave acoustic weapons. Right? We know that the injury that they sustain. Okay, and if you're a TI and you've been a TI over a decade, you should definitely go and get MRIs, go and get X-rays done, um, go and get you know, psychological evaluation. And not to say that you're crazy, but when you're hit with these weapons, and as I said, not to say that you're crazy, they will do this. Okay. Why? Because the more I expose them, is the more they're going to label you as crazy to discredit you. Okay, and we're going to talk about that, right? The discrediting of those of us who speak in the truth, exposing what's being done, how the psychiatric industry has always played a role in discrediting even civil rights leaders, community activists, even whistleblowers within the police department, within government agencies, within corporate agencies or corporate corporations, right? Who blew those individuals who blew the whistle on wrongdoing and corruption. Okay, so this is nothing new. Okay, this is why the label don't bother me. Okay, it doesn't bother me because I know at any time they'll take it off and take it on and put it back on because it depends on how emboldened they are by what they're doing and if they think they can get away with it. Okay, all right. So let's do this reading. Environmental warfare. The US government has a new ground based Star Wars weapon which is being tested in the remote bush country of Alaska. This new system manipulates the environment in a way which can disrupt human mental processes, jam all global communication systems, change weather patterns over large areas, interfere with wildlife migration patterns, negatively affect your health, or naturally impact the Earth's upper atmosphere. The US military calls it Zapper HAARP for High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project. But this Skybuster is not about the Northern Lights. This device will turn on lights never intended to be artificially manipulated. Their first target is the electrojet, a river of electricity that flows thousands of miles through the sky and down into the polar ice cap. The electrojet will become a vibrating artificial antenna for sending electromagnetic radiation raining down on the Earth. The US military can the X ray the Earth and talk to submarines, but there's much more they can do with HAARP. Sorry, I think I might have read that wrong. So the U.S. military can then X-ray the Earth and talk to submarines, but there is much more they can do with HAARP. This book, and you have to excuse me if I miss words. Lately, they've been attacking me so much that my short-term memory again has been um, greatly affected. Okay. Um, this book reveals surprises from secret meetings. Project censored. A prestigious panel of journalists judged HAARP to be in the top 10 underreported news stories of 1994. Popular Science. As a front cover story, HAARP began to be revealed in September 1995. This book is the rest of the story. The High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project is the harp that angels don't play. Okay, this is about the author. Just gonna read a few lines here. Dr. Nick Begich is the oldest son of the late United States Congressman from Alaska, Nick Begich Sr., and political activist Peggy Begich. He is well known in Alaska for his own political activities. He has twice he was twice elected president of both the Alaska Federation of Teachers and the Anchorage Council of Education. He has been pursuing independent research in the sciences and politics for most of his adult life. Begich received his doctorate in traditional medicine from the Open Institutional University for uh, Complementary Medicine in November 1994. He co-authored the book Earth Rising Revolution Towards 1,000 Years of Peace with James Roderick in January 2000. He is also the editor of Pulse Flashpoints, a new science book series. Begich has published articles in science, politics, and education, and is a well known lecturer, having presented throughout the United States and in 19 countries. So you can say he's done a lot of research, and he's a well known expert on the field of particularly directed energy weapons and a lot of these secret technologies that are being developed. Okay. Okay. Let's go to timeline. This illustration shows the ionosphere relationship to the. I got to get a sound effect for like dropping things over somebody said, like dropping a ball, something that's hard, so I can add to my sound effects because they constantly do that. Okay. So stay tuned for that sound effect. So the illustration shows the ionosphere relationship to the Earth. The illustration appears in the HAARP environmental impact statement on page 10 to 20 to 125 of volume 2. Messing with Mother Earth and her kids electromagnetically. A brief history of events and discovery. 1886 through 88, Nikola Tesla invents system of alternating current AC power source and transmission system. A 60 pulse per second hertz AC power grid spread over the land. Mom Earth will eventually dance to a different beat when her usual 7 to 8 hertz than her usual 7 to 8 hertz frequency. 1900, Tesla applies her patent on a device to transmit electrical energy through the natural mediums. 1905, U.S. patent number 78,412, or I should say 787412, issue for above. 1924, confirmation that radio wave bounce off ionosphere electrically charged layer starting at altitude of 50 kilometers. 1938, scientists proposed to light up the night sky by electron gyrotron heating from a powerful transmitter. 1940, Tesla announces dead ray invention. 1945, atomic bomb tests begin. 40,000 electromagnetic pulse to follow. 1952, W.O. Schwarzman identifies 7.83 Hertz resonant frequency of the Earth. 1956, Van Allen radiation belts discovered, zones of charged particles trapped in Earth's magnetic field, 20,000 plus miles up, violently disrupted in the same year. 1958, Project August, U.S. Navy explodes three nuclear bombs in Van Allen belt. 1958, White House advisor on weather modification says Defense Department studying ways to manipulate changes of Earth and sky and so affect the weather. 1960, series of weather disasters begin. 1961, copper needles dump into ionosphere as telecommunications shield. 1961, scientists propose artificial ion cloud experiments. In 1960s, the dumping of chemicals, barium powder, etc., from satellites, rockets began. 1961 to 62, the USSR and USA create many electromagnetic pulse (EMP) in the atmosphere. 300 megatons of nuclear device deplete ozone layer by about 4%. 1962, launch of Canadian satellite and start of simulated plasma resonance by antennas within the space plasma. 1966, Gordon J.F. McDonald published Military Idea on Environmental Engineering. 1960s, in Wisconsin, U.S. Navy Project uh, Sanguine lays extremely low frequency ELF antennas. 1968, Moscow scientists tell the West that they have pinpointed which pulse magnetic field frequencies help mental and psychological function and do which frequencies do harm. 1972, first reports on ionospheric heater experiments with high frequency radio wave at Arecibo. 9A 100 megawatt heater in Norway built later in decade can change conductivity of a rural ionosphere. 1973, documentation that launch of Skylab halved the total electron content of the ionosphere for 3 hours by rocket exhaust gases. 1973, recommendations for study of Project Sanguine biological effects denied by Navy. 1974, United uh, Nations General Assembly bans environmental warfare. 1974, high frequency experiments at Plattsville, Colorado, Arecibo, Puerto Rico, and Armadale, New South Wales heat bottom side of ionosphere. 1974, experiments, air globe brightened by hidden oxygen atom in ionosphere with ill-accelerated electrons. 1975, Stanford professor Robert Hillewell report that very low frequency VLF from power lines is altering the ionosphere. 1975, U.S. Senator Gaylord Nelson forces Navy to release research showing that extremely low frequency ELF transmission can alter human blood chemistry. 1975, Pell State Subcommittee urged that weather and climate modification work be overseen by civilian agencies answerable to U.S. Congress. Didn't happen. 1975, Soviets began pulsing woodpecker extremely low frequency ELF wave at key brainwave rhythm, Eugene, Oregon, one of location where people were particularly affected. 1976, doctors Susan Bowen and W. Ross Aldi show nerve cell affected by ELF fields. 1979, launch of NASA's third high energy astrophysical observatory caused large scale artificial induced depletion of the ionosphere. Plasma hole caused by rapid chemical processes between rocket exhaust and ozone layer. Ionosphere was significantly depleted over a horizontal distance of 300 kilometers for some hours. 1985, Bernard J. Eastland applies for patent method and apparatus for altering a region in the Earth's atmosphere, ionosphere, and or magnetosphere. First of three Eastland patent assigned to ORCO Power Technology Incorporated. 1986, U.S. Navy Project Helmholtz duplicates Delgado Madrid experiment, very low level, very low frequency pulse magnetic field harm chicks embryos. 1980s. In the later part of the decade, the U.S. began network of ground wave Emergency Network, Gwen Towers, each to generate very low frequency VLF waves for defense purposes. 1987 to 92. Other Artco Power Technologies Incorporated, APTI, scientists built on Islam pattern for development of new weapon capabilities. 1994, military contractor E-System buys APTI, holder of Islam patents and contract to build biggest ionospheric heater in the world, high frequency active auroral research project, HAARP. 1994, Congress freezes funding on HAARP until planners increase emphasis on Earth's penetrating tomography uses for nuclear counter-proliferation efforts. 1995, Raytheon buys E-System and old APTI patents. The technology is now hidden among thousands of patents within one of the largest defense contractor portfolios. 1995, Congress budgets $10 million for 1996 under nuclear counter proliferation efforts for HAARP project. 1995, HAARP planner to test patent number 5041834 in September. 1994 through 96, testing at first stage HAARP equipment continues, although funding was frozen. 1996, HAARP planners to test the Earth penetrating tomography application by modulating the electrojets at ELF frequencies. 1998, the European Parliament Subcommittee on Security and Disarmament holds a hearing on HAARP on February 5th, 1998. Co-author Begich presents on HAARP and new weapon technologies. 2001 to 17. Project period for HAARP operation, fully operating HAARP development prototype system by early part of the period. 2020, I guess. Dr. Robert O. Decker, Cross Current, The Perils of Electropollution, The Promise of Electromedicine, Jeremy Tracher, LA 1990. In February 1998, while testifying before the European Parliament, I indicated that the United States would violate the Anti-Ballistic Missile ABM treaty with the former Soviet Union. I asserted that the United States would take the position that because the Soviet Union had dissolved, the agreement was no longer valid. On this point, the members of the committee could not agree with us because most believed that the United States would honor the agreement, recognizing the treaty as a stabilizing document for the entire world. In less than 10 months from our pronouncement, the United States announced their new initiative for a missile defense system outside of the treaty. United States Senator Ted Stevens made the argument just as predicted. The original ABM treaty allowed only one defense system in each country, the United States and the Soviet Union. It had been our contention that HAARP represents research which could lead to me eventually, to ME, I should say. Make sure I'm saying that right. Which would eventually lead to me, eventually deployment of a new missile defense system based in Alaska. We also made clear that United States was moving forward with new technologies while giving the world and our allies the impression that there was a real effort underway towards reduction in arm. Okay. Um, Word is there, I just don't, anyhow. The reality time would uh, demonstrate was a new race towards the new technology. Whatever happened to Star Wars? Remember Star Wars? The concept which would move the theater of war to space? In 1995, the funding for Star Wars was widely reported as a dead issue when full funding was defeated by the United States Congress. However, Star Wars did not end as many unpopular programs do. They just get new names. This year, the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization, once called the Strategic Defense Initiative, got 3.7 billion. That's up from 2.8 billion in 1995 and is very near the peak level spent during the Cold War. The problem was that the United States was not fully covered under its single ABM system, leaving Alaska and Hawaii unprotected. Alaska produced about 22% of U.S. oil requirement, holds all 33 strategic minerals in commercial quantities, and represents a tremendous natural resource wealth. Hawaii is a strategic point for the entire specific presence of the United States military. These two areas, in the estimation of military planner, had to be protected. The need for a system to protect Alaska and Hawaii is acknowledged, and we agree that these regions should be protected. We believe that this could be accomplished in a more open and honest way, particularly when it affects our allies and the American public. What is interesting is that the billions spent on Star Wars system, which these became known as, were only for research according to the military mission statement. The technology is being advanced in the hope that a system might be developed early in the next century. The external threats are now being characterized as rogue states and terrorist organizations, which might gain nuclear weapon delivery technology. While the threat are not imagined and need to be addressed, it is not responsible to create word games which end public debates and allow system thought to be discontinued the latitude to proceed. In another offshoot of the Reagan administration's Strategic Defense Initiative, satellite disabling lasers have been developed. A test at less than full power was performed at the end of 1997 to demonstrate the ability of the system to hit its target. The demonstration was a success, and now many are concerned that this may provoke an arms race in space. What has become clear is that the United States says its citizens, friends, and adversaries tend to be variations of the same misinformation and manipulation of the facts. HAARP. This is where our story began. HAARP, the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, is a joint project of the United States Air Force and Navy based in Alaska. The project is a research program designed to study the ionosphere in order to develop new weapon technologies. The HAARP system is designed to manipulate the ionosphere, a layer which begins about 30 miles above the Earth. The transmitter or HAARP device on the ground is a phased array antenna system, a large field of antennas designed to work together in focusing radio frequency energy for manipulating the ionosphere. The radio frequency energy can be pulsed, shaped, and altered in ways never possible with other transmitters or at the power level of this new facility. The device will be an effective radiated power of 1 billion watts when completed in the first phase of the project. It will be used for earth penetrating tomography, looking through layers of the earth to locate underground facilities and minerals, communication with submarines, to manipulate communication of others over the horizon radar, energy transfer from one part of the world to another, creating artificial plasma energy layers or patches in the atmosphere to alter weather and may be used as an anti satellite weapon. The story of HAARP and its related technology is a part of a puzzle of a revolution in military affairs being pursued by the United States government, but it is only a small part. Excuse me. Drink of water. Millions of dollars has gone to Alaska universities to harness the power of the aurora borealis, the electrical energy shimmering in the northern skies. The Airmark also financed, among other things, a supercomputer north of the Arctic Circle without naming the University of Alaska, Fairbanks, as the beneficiary. Early on in the HARP project, there were confusion about harnessing the energy of the aurora, the northern lights, for use by the military. The real use appears to be for over the horizon effect, communication, and ABM defense related research. The University of Alaska, again, is the recipient of a supercomputer for academic research. The reality, once again, is that the United States is being used to conduct, sorry, the university is being used to conduct military experiments for advanced weapon system without full public disclosure or debate. The above update material is quoted from the book Earth Rising, the Revolution Towards a Thousand Years of Peace by Dr. Nick Begich and James Roderick. Immediate release. Dr. Nick Begich, founder of Earthpole Press and co-author of Angel Don't Play This Harp and Earth Rising, the Revolution, delivered a lecture on Arctic issue and HAARP in Brussels in the European Parliament on May 5th to 7th, 1997 at the 12th General Assembly Globe International. In attendance were several members of the Russian Duma, including uh, Vitaly Severnov, one of the delegates listed below. U.S. HAARP Weapon Development Concern Russian Duma. Interfax Agencies, August 9, 2002. Moscow, Interfax. The Russian State Duma has expressed concern about the United States program to develop a uh, qualitatively new type of weapon. Under the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, HAARP, the U.S. is creating new integral geophysical weapon that may influence the near-Earth medium with high-frequency radio wave. The State Duma says in an appeal circulated on Thursday, the significance of this qualitative leap could be compared to the transition from cold steel to firearms or from conventional weapon to nuclear weapon. This new type of weapon differ from previous type in the near Earth medium becomes at once an object to direct influence and its component. These conclusions were made by the Commission of the State Duma International Affairs and Defense Committees. The statement reads, the committee reported that the U.S. is planning to test 3 facilities of this kind. One of them is located on the military testing ground in Alaska, and its full-scale tests are to begin in early 2003. The second one is in Greenland, and the third one in Norway. When these facilities are launched into space from Norway, Alaska, and Greenland, a closed contour will be created with a truly fantastic integral potential for influencing the near Earth medium, the State Duma says. The U.S. planned to carry out large scale scientific experiments under the HAARP program and not controlled by the global community. Will create weapons capable of breaking radio communication lines, and equipment installed on spaceships and rockets provoke serious accidents in electricity network and in oil and gas pipeline, and have a negative impact on the mental health of people populating entire regions, the deputy says. They demand that an international ban be put on such large-scale geophysical experiments. The appeal, signed by 90 deputies, have been sent to President Vladimir Putin, to the UN and other international organizations, to the parliament and leader of the UN member countries, to the scientific public, and to mass media outlets. Among those who signed the appeal are, I'm not going to read all their names, but let's move on. Okay. Raising the root of the world. A 4-year-old child in his sandbox looked up at a blue sky with his eyes full of trust. His mother placed a straw hat on his head, dabbed sun-blocking cream on his freckled nose, and expect that because she shields him from the sun ultraviolet rays, he is safe from harmful radiation. But is he? Both his body and this planet are being penetrated by an unprecedented mix of man-caused radiation. And now the U.S. military plans to stir up the mix even further. They could go too far this time. This book is about people who search for the truth about the Pentagon project that is quietly being built at a remote outpost in Alaska. The $30 million project, euphemistically named HAARP, High Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, is made to beam more than 1.7 gigawatts, which is a billion watts, of radiated power into the ionosphere, the electrical charge layer over Earth's atmosphere. Put simply, the apparatus is a reversal of a radio telescope, just transmitting instead of receiving. It will boil the upper atmosphere. After disturbing the ionosphere, the radiations will bounce back onto the Earth in the form of long waves which penetrate our bodies, the ground, and the ocean. Could the invasion of radiation damage plants and animal life on the ground? One technician researcher told National Public Radio affiliate KCHU, I can hardly find an expert who knows anything about this because they are all working for the government or working for universities, which by proxy is for the government because they are funded either through defense subcontracts, contracts, or through grants from the Department of Defense. Working for the government can certainly be an honorable position, but in the case of science, it gets in the way of objectivity and courage to explore. Throughout this century, scientists are increasingly hesitant to investigate freely outside their specialty. They are all too aware that the military industrial academic complex decided who gets the lucrative grants, consultancy, or academic position. However, there are independent experts, such as those who look into HAARP, who speak out in the pages of this book. These researchers learned that HAARP represents a technology which could lead to a new class of weapon that could change our world profoundly. An all purpose military tool. If misused, the tool could mess up the weather. It could be used against humanity in a way that could change what people think, believe, and feel. It could be used for good or evil, just as harp can produce the music, just as a harp can produce the music of Mozart or a melody of a dead march. Many technological notes may be played by harp type military experiments. They can manipulate global weather, hurt ecosystems, knock out electric uh, communication, change our mood and mental states. That last item will surprise researchers who have been looking only at the possible environmental effect of HAARP type technology. However, the author believed that no sane person wants to be manipulated into artificially induced moods or action. He's absolutely right about that. Okay. Now we see Facebook engaging in experiment in which to alter people's mood, right? And what they call emotional contagion, okay, or action. Instagram, right? Trying to induce an even darker thought of self deletion to young people who may be um, suicidal. Okay, so they use a combination of technology and psychological manipulation, psychological tactics and methods. Okay, and that the possibilities are real. As you will see in the research cited in this book, U.S. decision makers for the first time are proposing to mix military and civilian police resources under the banner of non lethal weaponry for crowd control and other purpose, like national security, like public safety, that sort of thing. Okay? This book looks at what can be done to modulate radio frequencies, the stuff of the HAARP experiments, and what environmental effect the experiments could trigger. The intent of this book is to call for a memorandum on use of the power of the super powerful ionospheric heaters until independent scientists and other non-military decision makers can have an educated look at what the experimenters could do. To put it simply, no one is supervising the big boys who have the big toys and the big black wallets. Despite the end of the Cold War, their allowance are still uh, enviable. Even with some cutbacks to their spending, the military gets more than other sectors. For example, the Clinton administration, as of May 1995, planned to spend at least $15 billion on theater defense missile system in the next 7 years. We contend that it's time for the public to take a closer look of how such money is used. It is being used to raise the roof of the world. Sorry, is it being used to raise the roof of the world? The author's purpose is not to scare you, but instead to inform you on underreported crucial issues and to provide sources for more information. HAARP has been misrepresented by both the military contractors and by both the military contractors and by its opponent. It's time to open up the debate to bring in an informed public. In these pages, you will meet some of the people from the Alaskan bush to a Princeton science laboratory who courageously dug into the topic and in the process mobilized many other people. Patilla Clark, Australia, missile deal for Star Wars 2, Sydney Morning Herald, May 19, 1995. The people wake up to HAARP. This project has nothing to do with musical instrument or the natural aurora. Claire Zickrock, former accountant of ARCO and HAARP researcher, Tesla appeared as a real-life sorcerer, depicting the ability to tame mysterious natural phenomena at the will of the human species. Mark J. Schaefer, PhD. Chapter 1. The Sorcerer's Apprentice. Lightning flicker and thunder crashed through the mountain air as if queued up to open an International Tesla Society July 1986 symposium. A woman admired the jagged streaks of light as she walked across downtown Colorado Springs to the College of the Canyon. The display of lights and sounds seemed to have a life of its own and triggered thoughts about Earth's life protecting layer. The layer appeared immensely deep to the human looking up from a sidewalk, but a few hundred miles of depth of the ionospheric layers or to the planet as a film of paint is to a student desk globe. Unlike layers of paint, however, the atmospheric veil swirls and flow and interact. She found comfort in thinking that surely no one can tame Earth dynamics atmosphere. Granted, as I said, the word no one could tame. Yeah, Carl. Okay. All right. Granted, nature is on the seas elsewhere. Engineers straighten undulating wild rivers and slap them into concrete flood control channels. They shave earth forests and drain unruly tidal marshes. But who is arrogant enough to say that they own the sky? After a brief downpour, the storm curtain opened to an electric blue sky, and the air sparkled with vitality. No wonder Tesla did his most dramatic experiments here, Jeanine Manning thought. As a freelance journalist, she was in Colorado to learn more about the work of some maverick engineers and their hero, the electrical genius Nikola Tesla. In her research into non-conventional energy technology, she had encountered more than a few books about Tesla. And though it's strange that mainstream textbooks ignore such a historical figure. In the 19th century, he patented the alternating current AC system now used to generate and send electrical power to every home along this avenue. Every building in the campus ahead and factories all over the world. His genius did not stop there, however. And before he died in 1943, he had discovered more radical inventions, apparently more than the tycoons of the early years of the 20th century wanted to see developed. Manning was curious about the stories. Did Tesla really send electricity more than 20 miles without wire? There are also the legend that Tesla invented a space energy receiver and powered a Pierce-arrowed car in a demonstration of the receiver. Yet he died penniless in 1943. She expected this conference would give a broader picture of Tesla than her impression of a would be god of lightning, a view that came from seeing photographs of Tesla with bolts of lightning streaming from his fingertip. In front of audience in New York cultural elite of New York cultural elite in his, as I said the word, in, um, maybe read this. In front of audience in New York cultural elite in his laboratory, he had allowed hundreds of thousands of volts to pass through his body and light up lamps, melt metal, and explode small light bulbs. It was a don't try this at home scene with the slender inventor sprayed with crackling electrical current as he stood stalk like on an insulated shoes. Manning was fascinated at the thought of the elegant Tesla showing off for his cultured friends. In his laboratory lit with dazzling pulsated waves of light in unearthed warm hues. In the college where the conference was held, she picked up a press pass, then joined 200 or so spectators in Armstrong Auditorium. On stage, a man made lightning sizzle through the air, zigzagging from a giant electrical device called a Tesla coil, which dwarfed three technicians. Blue lights spark along the path of fried air, and members of the audience covered their ears against the deafening electric buzz. It looked lethal, but the demonstrator explained that although Tesla used high voltage electrical pressure current, it was of such a high frequency that it danced over his skin instead of zapping his internal organ. A man sat on top of the apparatus before the coil was turned on with a deafening roar, then long sparks jumped from his fingertips. In other meeting room, would-be gods of lightning told about their research. One of those speakers was Robert Gorka, a sturdy man built with a cocky personality of a lone adventurer. He prided himself on making fireballs by whatever means, even from a circuit breaker in a railroad engine when he had slammed the engine into reverse. A fireball, a ball lightning, as a growing fear that what looks like gases. The speaker said that Nikola Tesla's wireless power experiment near Colorado Springs made 30-second golf ball size ball lightning in 1899. Why would anyone want to play with lightning in any shape? Golka was explaining. Ball lightning might hold the secret of thermonuclear fusion and eventually cheap power. He had rented an empty hang bar in Wendover, Utah. The hang, I mean hang, the hangar in Wendover, Utah. The hangar where the atomic bomb was loaded into a bomber for its dead drop debut and built a Tesla coil that was 51 feet wide for experiments. Gorka spoke of voltages of 15 million volts and lightning like discharge 40 feet long. He hints that the technology would be used as an ultra high megavolt source of particle beam weaponry. Manning wondered what the engineer on stage really wanted to do: send electrical energy without wires, or get a grant from the military, or both. As if in answer to her question, Gorka began to talk about wireless powered wireless power transmission. Nikola Tesla had claimed to be able to send elect excuse me electrical energy without wires before the turn of the century, and he envisioned people all around the globe sticking rods into the earth to extract that energy free. He didn't get to send power to the people, however. After Tesla admitted to financier J.P. Morgan that an experimental tower on Long Island was meant to send power as well as messages, his public career ended. Okay, so imagine that. See, when I talk about that, they have advanced technology more than they let us on to know. This is what I'm talking about. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. We are being given trickle down technology. And I always say this, that the US military is at least a decade to 2 decades ahead of the public technology sector when it comes to the advancements of technology. And as I said that, I hear they are so they are so adamant about trying to silence me. All right. Anyone who dive into these sort of research, their lives are being disrupted and being destroyed. They're being manipulated, right? They don't want us to know the truth. They don't want us to know what's going on, how they've been manipulating us with these weapons. Although he continued to invent and to learn, he was kicked out of the spotlight. Corporate moguls who were interested in creating monopolies and metering electrical power blackballed him. Gorka spoke about his own Project Tesla, which involved building a 122-foot resonating tower high in the mountains. Manning suggests, Manning struggled to understand what he meant by his effort to get Earth resonance. She could visualize the more familiar resonance in musical instrument, and that helped to picture the Earth, the Earth vibrating as if its notes were struck. If its note was struck, if someone strikes a piano key of the same pitch as a string on her violin nearby, for example, the string would vibrate. The pitch of the note comes from how many times per second the sound vibrates. Similarly, the earth may have a resonant frequency if electrical oscillation pound through the earth at a certain rate for a long enough time. A small periodic input may build up a large vibration. Could Tesla knowledge about resonance really be used for advanced technology? We're losing to the Japanese, Gorka said. We have the technology and we're sleeping on it. Another short, lively speaker, an engineering professor, said there is definite evidence that Nikola Tesla did excite the Schwarzschild cavity in 1899. This cavity is the area between the Earth and the electrical charged ionosphere. A man from Albuquerque, New Mexico, brought the talk down to earth again with a demonstration of a squat piece of equipment called the Tesla Earthquake Oscillator. Stroking his beard, a trim gray goatee, he assured onlooker that the oscillator would not be coupled to the earth during the demonstration and therefore would not cause any earthquake. Now, there are times that I'm sitting, and this happens a lot, okay? And I would feel like very small tremors. If I'm sitting on the couch, the whole couch would shake, the floor would shake. But it's very small. right? And it isn't like an earthquake tremor. Okay, what I experience is as if the building was moving back and forth. Right. Well, I guess that would be a earthquake tremor. But there wasn't, and it was very, very subtle, really, really subtle. Okay, and like I said, this happens quite a few times. All right. Um, what's that here? Okay, so the mechanical device had its frictionless piston in a heavy casing. This oscillator pounds the earth and impresses on its rhythmic vibration a certain controllable frequency, he said. The sound vibration would bounce back and forth in a reflection pattern which produced standing wave overlapping or notes, which acts as lenses to propagate waves which set up a, and before I got to that word set up, police siren, um, which set up a resonance condition. There was that word resonance again. The electrical engineer talked about a buildup of even more powerful effects. Madden may have had a puzzled expression on her face because one man turned to her and offered to further explain resonance. He gave the example of a child pushing a larger person on a swing. Small pushes, correctly timed, gradually increase the distance through which the swing speeds. In other words, small input at regular intervals can produce big effect. Resonance would turn out to be an important concept used deliberately or inadvertently by men who try to tame the sky and in the process accidentally interfere with our weather, health, and minds. But Manning wouldn't encounter the busters until 5 years later. In another meeting room, a graduate student from Montana State University, Kyle Clicker, talked about the hypothesis of William Harper, who gave new twists on magnetic theory. In the early 1970s, Harper had been showing that not all electrical fields are the same. What he called a uh, motional electric field was different from the well-known electrostatic fields. The motional electric fields result in a force that passes through lead. In other words, the field is unshieldable. Electricity of a different quality. Manning wasn't ready for that. She was still studying beginner level books about standard electricity. However, she went to the library. Over the previous few years, she had realized that there was a shortage of journalists looking into this scene. Engineering lectures were a long way from her university training as a social worker and job experience as a reporter. But she would look back on this 1986 conference and more than a dozen other energy conferences to follow as an introduction to the scene. They introduced her to the fast growing field of study called non-conventional energy technology. Even the William Hopper pattern would turn up in her life again later, quoted as quoted in a Skybuster document that would frighten some otherwise unflappable scientists. In the 1986 meeting, however, she tried to narrow down what she was learning in order to make sense of it. History. She could easily grasp history. Next on the Tesla program was a man with a craggy face and the erect posture of a military officer. Dr. Bill Jones of Los Angeles was a physicist, retired naval officer, and former Top Gun pilot who spoke about Nikola Tesla's place in history. Unfortunately, Jones ran through his talk at a much slower pace than the Mark II speed of which he had flown fighter planes. This physicist made it clear that he wanted Tesla reinstated in a place of honor in history. For example, Jones said, Guillermo Marconi got recognition for radio, but Tesla had demonstrated a radio controlled boat in Madison Square Garden several years before Marconi announcement. Dr. Jones also told about incidents, which incidents such as the time in 1911 when Tesla described how radar could work. Tesla was too far ahead of his time to be heard. 6 years later, Tesla would offer his invention of a particle beam weapon to the United States Department of War and was laughed out of the War Office. Again, he was too early in the century to be believed. With a reporter habit of making notes, Manning penned the speaker word in the notebook. What do we really know about magnetism? What do we really know about electrostatics? Dr. Jones talked about something described as force potential manifest by stress and not necessarily in the process of mass. Some researchers look at this force potential as being scalar electromagnetics. Electromechanics. Mainstream scientists are reluctant to accept these new and revolutionary ideas, Dr. Jones said, but the idea holds promise for clean energy technology. On the last day of the conference, as people flowed out of the auditorium, the crowd eddied around a man of burly build, uh, probably in his late 30s, who was speaking in an abrupt, insistent voice that could be heard at the end of the hall. I was saying that as who was speaking in an ab, abrupt, insistent voice could be heard at the end of the hall. Pretty sorry. I object to this deliberate buildup of a cult around Tesla, referring to things he never invented, never said as Tesla science. The agitator was having a negative effect on the men arguing with him about power beaming invention. He appeared to feed on their annoyance. Later in the afternoon, Manning again wandered out of the meeting hall for a mid lecture break. Head throbbing, Manning again wandered out of the meeting hall for a mid lecture break. Head throbbing with new concept, the same loud voiced man whom we will call Gregory Jones was talking to another man, and the two drew her into conversation. Gregory had the bouncy energy of someone who was looking for a quick laugh as well as an argument. Asked why he insulted Nikola Tesla at the Tesla symposium, he replied, I like deflating idols. This iconoclast was a full-time researcher regarding what he said is a subtle, powerful, but little-known dynamic energy which resides in the atmosphere and nearly everywhere. He said a number of experiments have proven that a dynamic non-material energy exists in all living forms. Manning had enough of wild concept from day one. However, at a gut level, she felt it was true. Living people, animal plants, and even the atmosphere seemed to exude some type of electricity or vitality when in a healthy state. And when free from the effect of pollution, it is possible that official science really doesn't know much about something so basic because the measuring instrument hadn't yet been invented to detect it. Gregory was saying that the coarse form of electricity used in 19th and 20th century technologies is an irritant of a primal form of energy in the air. According to that worldview, if Tesla had been able to send electricity wireless all over the world, it could have been an ecological disaster. Humans, my least favorite species, Gregory bellowed, following the embarrassed journalist towards the door to the meeting hall. Listen to this. I just got myself kicked out of the meeting. I went up to the speaker. You heard his talk. The electrical engineering professor with a PhD that Gregory mentioned had seemed highly respected by the audience. The scientist had done much experimenting towards the goal of repeating Tesla's wireless electricity experiment. Well, look at today, right? We have wireless cell phones. We have wireless transmitter like Wi-Fi signals, right? He had talked about wanting to resonate the Schwarzman cavity, but Gregory was no respecter of academic degree. He apparently had caused another commotion in the hallway by confronting this professor. I told him that if he tried to be another Tesla, he could cause the biggest ecological disaster we've ever had. In Gregory's views, it was fortunate for the planet that Tesla Tower on Long Island, intended to broadcast power around the Earth, was never completed. After the banker J.P. Morgan withdrew funding, no other financier would touch the project. It was just as well. The project would have been insane, Gregory insists. Yeah, okay. They stole his inventions and they control the technology, right? They held back the technologies, sort of like what the Catholic Church did, the Roman Catholic Church, right? In terms of uh, cures for illnesses, right? So they kept the medical books that the Moors left after the Moors were driven out of Spain or southern Europe, right? And they used it. They used the book now to clean up Europe in terms of when Europe were going through a period in which you had a lot of diseases like the Black Plague, stuff like that. So when they when their prayer to their God would not be answered, they went to the books, right? And that is how Europe were able to overcome the these plagues. Okay, all right. So whether they send the electrical power through the air or through the earth, he said, these experiments would be playing with our planet on a big scale. So what did the professor say? He said, well, we just have to try and find out. Hearing this, Manning stood in silence. Gregory, concerned for his planet natural system, felt sincere. He asked for her business card. To her surprise, he would telephone her occasionally for about 6 years. And he would turn out to be ferociously intelligent and the most relentless information seeker she would meet in the coming years of travels and conference of invention and other energy researchers. She was careful to pass on to him only non confidential information from published sources, never fully trusting Gregory because of his extremism, but she did appreciate the long distance call over the next few years to educate her about what he called mad science. If Tesla resonance effect was as shown by the Stanford team can control enormous energy by minuscule triggering signal, then with godlike arrogance, we someday might yet direct the stars in their courses. All right. Frederick Juneman, 1974. All right. So I'm going to end chapter 1, and then the next video on this format, we will begin chapter 2, Tales from Tesla to Star Wars. Okay?
Your mind, you must unlearn.